very good morning to each and everyone watching Mama Rugagasaba Television. Thank you for being with us. You're going to be with me, Kamikaze Gislaine. Now let's kick off with the news headlines. Rwanda records steady rise in fish production. Regional grid challenges causing power cuts in Rwanda. On the international news, Tunisia frees NGO worker Sherifa Riahi after 20 months. Now let's take a short break to be back on the news details. Welcome back. Let's start our news in Rwanda. Rwanda has recorded a steady rise in food production, strengthening food security and farmer incomes across the country. According to the figures from the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, national fish production increased to more than 52,000 tons in the 2024-2025 financial year, up from 48,000 tons the previous year. The growth continues a 5-year upward trend driven largely by expanded aquaculture. Officials said improved hatchery capacity, better access to quality fingerlings, and training programs for fish farmers have boosted output. More than 1,700 farmers have received technical support to improve the pond management and feeding practices. Research into alternative fish feeds, including black soldier fly larvae, has also helped reduce production costs. Aquaculture now plays an important role in Rwanda's agriculture sector, contributing to employment and nutrition. Government targets under the Strategic Plan for Agriculture Transformation aim to raise annual fish production to nearly 78,000 tons by 2029 as demand for affordable protein continues to grow. Authorities say sustained investment will be key to maintaining the momentum. Turning to the next story, Rwanda's Ministry of Infrastructure has attributed the recent nationwide electricity shortages to problems affecting cross-border power transmission lines linking the country to its neighbors, while assuring the public that solutions are underway. Speaking on Tuesday, January 6th, Secretary of State at the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ambassador Wihanganye Jean Didier, apologized to citizens following widespread power outages that occurred on the evening of January 5th. His remark came after a public complaint on social media questioning the performance of the Rwanda Energy Regulatory Authority amid frequent blackouts. Ambassador Wihanganye said Rwanda's electricity is supply increasingly affected by disruptions in regional transmission network shared with neighboring countries. He explained that the faults occurring outside Rwanda can have a direct impact on the national grid. He stressed, however, that the situation is temporary. According to the ministry, projects are already underway to better protect Rwanda's electricity infrastructure and reduce reliance on vulnerable external networks. Authorities say these measures are being fast-tracked and that the public will be kept informed as the progress is made. Now let's take a short break to be back on the international news. Welcome back on the international news. After more than 20 months in detention, Sherifa Riahi has been reunited with her family following holidays from prison in Tunisia. Sandra Tumukundi has more of the story.
Let's start with international news in Africa. Tunisia has released NGO worker Sherifa, Riahi, and several colleagues after more than 20 months in detention, a support committee and court sources said on Tuesday. Riahi, the former director of the French humanitarian organization Terre d'Asile, was freed along with other staff members following a Tunisian court ruling that handed down 2 years suspended sentences on charges of facilitating the illegal entry and residence of immigrants. Supporters posted video footage showing Riahi leaving prison overnight, confirming the release of her detained colleagues. Lawyers of the defendant argued by the group had been assisting asylum seekers and vulnerable migrants under a government-approved program rather than committing any offense. The case has drawn international attention amid wider concerns over the treatment of civil society groups in Tunisia. The charges against Riahi and others highlighted the growing tension over migration policy in the North African national, a key transit for people seeking to reach Europe. Now, turning to our next story, Venezuela has agreed to export $2 billion worth of crude oil to the United States under a new deal with Washington. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday the agreement is expected to redirect Venezuelan oil shipment away from China and help prevent further cuts to Venezuela's oil production amid export blockade. Trump said Venezuela would supply between 30 and 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil, which would be sold at market prices and shipped directly to U.S. ports. He added that the revenues would be overseen by the U.S. government to benefit both countries. The deal follows increased U.S. pressure on cargoes, including illicit export blockade and the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. Chevron is currently the only U.S. company authorized to export Venezuelan crude and controls existing oil flows. U.S. officials said Gulf Coast refineries are well positioned to process Venezuela's heavy crude, potentially boosting supply stabilizing prices and supporting jobs. Now, concluding our international news, U.S. President Donald Trump is exploring ways for the United States to take control of Greenland with the possible use of military forces always an option. The White House said on Tuesday, escalating tension with NATO ally Denmark. White House has Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt described acquiring Greenland as a national security priority, citing concerns over Russia and China, as well as the island's strategic location, rare earth resources, and emerging Arctic shipping routes. Greenland and Denmark have both sought urgent talks with Washington to resolve what they call misunderstandings, but no meeting has yet taken place. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen reiterated that the territory is not for sale and that only Greenlanders can decide its future. Several European leaders, including those of Britain, France, and Germany, issued a joint statement reaffirming support for sovereignty and territorial integrity. The United States already maintains a military base on the island, home about 57,000 people. This is the end of our international news. My name is Alessandra Tumkun and this is Mama Urwarasawa TV.
As we come to the end of the news edition, let's remind you of the top stories that we talked about. Rwanda records to delays in fish production. Regional grid challenges causing power cuts in Rwanda. On the international news, Tunisia frees NGO worker Sherifa Riahi after 20 months. And this marks the end. Stay tuned.